Snubbing, the silent treatment, or stonewalling is a workplace bullying technique that mirrors one of the go-to favorite abuse techniques employed by narcissists in personal romantic relationships. Some people argue there is a difference between the silent treatment and stonewalling. I don't see a significant difference and consider them synonyms. For the purposes of the workplace, it is basically the cold shoulder. The workplace bully refuses to engage with or even acknowledge the target by, for example, not making eye contact with the target, not greeting the target, and not answering the target's questions. Some workplace bullies may accompany their snubbing with physical body language, lending a literal meaning to the term cold shoulder by, for example, turning their faces or even their entire bodies away from the target as soon as the target makes a physical appearance in the room. And snubbing may even include excluding the target from social gatherings such as lunches and even business meetings, although if the target is held responsible for the content of those meetings, then that form of abuse falls under the workplace bullying technique of withholding. Whatever forms snubbing takes, the workplace bully is not just ignoring you. It is something called active ignoring. The workplace bully, while snubbing, emits a sort of energy meant to let you know that the workplace bully really needs you to know that you are being ignored. The etymology of the word snub comes from roots for check or stop and could be related to Scandinavian roots for the word reproach. It is a punishment. It's also a form of emotional abuse. The intent of snubbing, as with all workplace bullying techniques, is to dominate, control, have power over, and manipulate the target, largely through confusion. Workplace bullies do not snub consistently, thereby exposing their bipolar Jekyll and Hyde personalities. The intent of snubbing is also very much to hurt the target by threatening the target with ostracism from the group and sending the message that the target is unlovable. Snubbing is meant to trigger not only your childhood abandonment issues, but also the universal unconscious fear of isolation from the group. When you were an infant, if your parents ignored you, you were threatened with your very literal physical death, and much the same goes for much of human history, when it was impossible to survive alone, and getting kicked out of the tribe meant certain death. The silent treatment is a form of narcissistic abuse, and though some people may disagree with me, I argue that all workplace bullying is a form of narcissistic abuse because the parallels between narcissistic personality disorder and workplace bullying are uncanny. Narcissism is on a continuum, but all workplace bullies are narcissist or at the very least exhibit very narcissistic tendencies. A narcissist is at the core a dead and empty soul with no real internal life or self, and that real self has been substituted by the false self, otherwise known as the narcissistic ego, a flimsy, fragile house of cards that demands constant support, otherwise known as supply, which has to be sourced exclusively from other people because the narcissist is completely disconnected from spirit. Any threat to the narcissistic ego feels literally life-threatening to the narcissist because that's all the narcissist has. And the narcissist cannot go without supply any more than you can go without air to breathe. All workplace bullying is an attempt to eliminate someone who has posed a threat to the narcissistic ego by not validating that ego and by not providing narcissistic supply. Snubbing is a punishment to punish you for the narcissistic injury that you inflicted by not validating the narcissistic ego and by not providing narcissistic supply. Narcissism is defined by many things, but one of those things is entitlement. Narcissists simply do not tolerate anyone or anything in their environment that they cannot control. It could be that you simply put up a boundary with them, or it could be that you called them out. Workplace bullying is not illegal, and I do not have hope that it ever will be, but it certainly is unethical, and if they are not above bullying, then what else are they up to? It could be that you refused to conform and cave in to their demands, to engage in unethical and possibly even illegal behavior, thereby violating your own integrity, values, ethics, and morals. At the very least, if you are snubbed in the workplace, you are being punished for not doing what entitled narcissistic workplace bullies want you to do. What did you do to deserve the punishment of snubbing? Well, it could be that you simply showed up. We're all looking for our tribe and desire to connect with a community of like-minded people who are on the same level as ourselves. When you are depressed, happy people may annoy you. And when you are joyful, you may not want to be around sad people. However, if you are not a narcissist, you simply extend compassion across the board. Workplace bullies, too, desire to connect with others on their level. It's just that their level is the level of ego. Again, the ego is the only thing the narcissist has. It's not that workplace bullies don't want to engage with you. It's that they demand that you engage with them on their level. Many people say to survive in the workplace, you have to quote-unquote play the game. And the game is something that I call the ego games. I don't know if men do or ever did this, but I've heard of something called chest bumping or chest pumping. Or if that doesn't resonate, let's go with bumper cars. Whenever I envision a toxic, maladaptive, dysfunctional workplace bullying environment, I see a bunch of people chest pumping or playing bumper cars. It's bumper to bumper, ego to ego. Boom, what do you think of me? Boom, do you like me? Boom, I need you to like me. Boom, are you as insecure as I am? Because I really need you to be. Workplace bullies connect with others only through negativity, insecurity, fear, vulnerability, and weaknesses. If you're not a narcissist and not a bully, you can connect with others by celebrating your strengths. Workplace bullies will pick at your insecurities within minutes of meeting you because that's how they get their hooks in, and secure you as a source of supply through power, domination, manipulation, and control. In Buddhism, you are supposed to be like a blade of grass. If you step on the blade of grass, it bends, but then it pops right back up again. If you are a target of workplace bullying, you are probably like that. You didn't show up with your narcissistic ego. You showed up with your authentic self, and you are being snubbed because that is completely useless to the narcissistic workplace bully. I have a theory that most targets of workplace bullying are empaths, or at the very least, highly sensitive people. And empaths are averse to inauthenticity. The reason you're not buying the narcissistic ego the way workplace bullies want to shove it down your throat is that it's disgusting. You're not feeling it, you're thoroughly unimpressed and uninspired, and unfortunately, because you don't have enough ego and are authentic, your distaste shows. If you are clairsentient on top of that and can feel energy as though it is physical, then narcissistic ego can make you literally physically ill. Workplace bullies love to accuse the target of, quote, not liking them, but what you really don't like is the ego. It's like, come back when you're real. You're not getting into all the drama and the gossip and the bullshit, and that alone is enough to inflict narcissistic injury. Workplace bullies also love to accuse the target of thinking you're better because you refuse to stoop to their level of fear-based ego games. Another gaslighting tactic that all narcissists love to employ in any relationship is to accuse the victim of being, quote, negative and unhappy. Because you confront them on their behavior, complain about the mistreatment, and have a perfectly normal emotional response to the abuse. But if you are a target of workplace bullying, you are probably the highest vibrational person in the place. You're the one person in the place going, let's go green. You recognize that the system and the status quo do not work for everybody. You refuse to accept that people and things are just the way they are, and you believe that things can and should change. Empaths are also characterized by a higher than normal vibration and a larger than normal aura. Again, the word snub comes from roots for check or stop, like curtail or rein in, like the reins used for a horse. Some workplace bullies snub you upon meeting you. They don't even give you a chance. It's not that they don't like the way that you look, they don't like your energy. And snubbing you is a way to take the edge off of your intensity. In other words, they just can't handle it. The intent of snubbing is to hurt the target, but of all the workplace bullying techniques that I have identified, snubbing is the least hurtful. In fact, it doesn't hurt at all. The truth is, you don't really want to engage with any of these people because, again, you find their narcissistic ego disgusting. You're just being civil and polite. If you are not a narcissist, you have retained an internal life. And part of the intent of all abuse is to isolate the target. If you are a chronic victim of abuse, even if you are not a natural introvert, by now you are really good at being alone. If you are snubbed in the workplace, you can just turn around, walk away, and go talk to somebody else, or I can write you a list as long as my arm of all the stuff that you can do by yourself, because you're over here doing you. If you are a target of workplace bullying, you are not only an empath, but also, I think it's safe to say, a codependent, which means that you give a lot in personal relationships. You give a lot because you have a lot to give, but you can find interpersonal relationships energetically draining and taxing. So when workplace bullies snub you, you feel only a sense of freedom, liberation, and relief. That's one less person to worry about and waste your energy on. But I bring up snubbing as a workplace bullying technique because it exposes the overwhelming hypocrisy of workplace bullies. Again, workplace bullies do not snub consistently. Most often they snub you in private, and then in the presence of the higher-ups, the people who matter, are over the top engaging, in fact, nauseatingly so. If you are codependent, you are very much in the business of giving people what they want. When workplace bullies snub you, you understand that they want to leave you alone, so you give them their space. But the worst snubbers in the place will use that against you, turn around and accuse you of being unfriendly, and accuse you of being the one doing the snubbing. When you're dealing with a workplace bully, you are dealing with a narcissist, and there is only one way to deal with a narcissist, and that is to go what is called no contact. Any mental health professional worth her salt, if she knows that you are in any kind of relationship with a narcissist, will advise you to go no contact. But if you go no contact in the workplace, of course, you will be accused of not being a team player, not playing well with others, being really difficult to work with, being really difficult to talk to, blah, blah, blah. There are some situations in which victims of narcissistic abuse cannot physically disengage from the narcissist, and it's usually because they have kids with them or because they work with them. In those situations, you can go what is called low contact or modified contact and do something called gray rock. Gray rock is an idea put forth by a blogger that has now been incorporated into almost all of the mainstream narcissism literature, which underscores the power of blogging. Basically, gray rock asks you to become so boring to the narcissist that the narcissist just goes away. Narcissists are attracted to pretty shiny things. They like excitement. It's like a baby distracted by bright lights. When you go gray rock, you become emotionally unresponsive to the narcissist. When you are dealing with a workplace bully, you have 3 responses: yes, no, and I don't know. Basically, gray rock is asking you not to cast your pearls before swine. And when it comes to workplace bullying, it is nothing but a bunch of fools and swine. I argue that you can cast your pearls before swine, as long as you know what you are dealing with and have managed or lowered expectations. If you are a target of workplace bullying, you are probably a very high vibrational empath and a very giving codependent. Again, you give because you have a lot to give. You have retained your connection to the universe. The universe is infinite and God provides. So it's really easy to recharge your batteries. You just get a good night's sleep, and there's more where that came from. And because you don't have this narcissistic ego, you don't really care what people do with the personal information that you reveal. So you can cast your pearls before swine. It's your choice. I bring up gray rock because it is controversial for several reasons. It's controversial because it denies your right to self-express. It asks you to voluntarily dim your light and create the dark and ugly world that narcissists and workplace bullies want for the rest of us. It's also controversial because some people argue that it doesn't work. And I argue that it is controversial in the workplace because if not done correctly, gray rock can look like snubbing. When you go gray rock, you are an empath who is trying to survive and protect yourself in an environment full of narcissists. But you risk being accused, again, of being the one doing the snubbing. So that's an introduction to the workplace bullying technique of snubbing, the silent treatment, or stonewalling. To read more in detail, I've written an essay on workplace bullying. It's on my website, and I include that information in the description. The reason I create this video series is to establish a forum where targets of workplace bullying can share their experiences and stories in a kind of support group. So you can know, number one, you're not crazy. Workplace bullying is real and your feelings are perfectly valid and justified. And number two, you're not alone. Unfortunately, countless others have experienced the same thing. So I look forward to reading your comments, and I promise to try to respond to each one. Take care.